As we're back for another episode of No BS Wealth, I am very grateful to have John Brink on, not only because he's going to be our oldest guest, and that's not a knock on him for being old at any point in time. It is because he is. It's true. It is what it is. There you go. Love it. A man who is not only about his health, lives the definition of what I say is true wealth, but ultimately has experiences throughout his time that we just abide to. So without further ado, John, thanks for coming on. Why don't you give us a brief background of how you got to where you're at today?
Okay, Stoy, thank you for being on your show. Look forward to it. Just to give you background, as you asked, is that I was born in 1940, November the 1st, actually, 1940, in northeastern Holland. And so I'm going to be 84 on November the 1st this year. So I showed you a picture of my book, Living Young, Dying Old. I'll show it to you again. I'm also the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America, so I stay active. So going back to where I came from, so born November the 1st, 1940, my mom and dad fell in love in the late 1930s, and 1938 they got married, very quickly had a boy and a girl, and they lived in paradise. They were happy, looking forward to a career and happiness. And then what happened is Adolf Hitler decided to invade all of Europe and Eastern and Southern Europe, and all the world changed. My dad was called into the Dutch army in April of 1940. Last they heard from him was when he was in Rotterdam, the city that was bombed by the Germans, and thousands of people were killed, and they didn't know for 5 years if he lived or he died. For my mom, now with two little children, a boy and a girl, and then I came along in November, so that was her world, and it became a struggle for the next 5 years. What I remember about that is that's still in my memories, even today, is in 1943, 1945, thousands of Allied bombers overhead, and again, think about northeastern Holland. We lived about 15 minutes from the border with Germany. And my mom, in particular, day and nighttime bombing, hundreds of bombers. The sound of it, Joey, I still remember today. I will never hear it again. Unbelievable sound. So my mom would take us out and at night, not to look at things, but she felt safer outside than inside. In the distance, we could see the cities, the lights in the skies, burning cities, Hamburg, Bremen, all of those cities along the North Sea of Germany, the eastern part of Germany, and where the infrastructure was of building the weapon system for the Germans. So that's the first thing that I remember. The second one is that we were liberated by the Canadian Army as part of the Allied forces that landed in Normandy in June of 1944 and pushed their way through the Americans and the other parts of the Allied forces. The Canadians pushed their way to Holland, France, Belgium, Holland, and then ended up in the northeastern part where we lived and pushed the Germans back into Germany. Things were rough, saw far too much that we should not have seen. And then we were liberated by the Canadian Army April the 12th, 1945. It made such an impression on me, the Canadians, that I always knew from that point forward, I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. So I was going to go when I was 17, but then my parents wouldn't let me. I was then drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 2.5 years. And then I finally won, when I was 23. But I was not a successful story then academically. I failed grade 3. I failed grade 7 3 times. And they said, what are we going to do with this guy? So some people said, well, send him to the mentally disturbed school. And my parents said, no, we're not going to do that. We'll train him into a profession so that he becomes professional doing something with his hands. So my grandfather was a master carpenter. My dad works in the lumber industry. I loved lumber. So at 13, I became an employee of a furniture factory. And, so Now, kids are hard on each other, so all the friends that I used to have at school that went on to the college and university, and I became a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then I was kind of looked down on. But I was always a happy-go-lucky guy. And so, so that's kind of what I did. I became a furniture maker and then worked in the industry, did quite well, actually, already, even at a young age. And then from there on in, became a furniture maker. But still, my dream was then twofold. The one was to go to the land of my heroes, Canada, and the other part was to build my own lumber mill. And I wanted to start with nothing to prove to me that I was just as smart, not better than, but just as smart as the other guys that went on to college, university, and all the other places. So I left in July of 1965 with 1 suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and with very little money because I wanted to start with nothing. Couldn't speak the language, didn't have a job, didn't know a soul. And so I went on the plane to Montreal, Canada, came off the train, but then went on the train. I knew that the timber was in British Columbia. And so then I took the train across Canada. My God, that is a long way. 4 days, 5 nights. Came off the train in Vancouver, British Columbia, and went to the immigration office. And fortunately, there was a German fellow working there, and I could speak some German. And I told him what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a lumber mill. And he said, go to Prince George. That's the boom town. Now, for a guest watching us from around the world, they say, okay, we know where Canada is. We heard of British Columbia, and there's a big city in British Columbia. It's called Vancouver. Where is Prince George? Well, it's 500 miles north, or 800 kilometers for our friends in Europe, north of that. So I went on the bus, the Greyhound bus, for 12, 13 hours, came off the bus here in Prince George. That's 60 years ago, So, and with my suitcase, my 3 books, and 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. And I was going to build a mill. So I got a job, cleanup man, lumber pilot, and gradually, slowly, I started to learn to speak the language. In a year and a half, I was a superintendent of one of the largest sawmills here in northern British Columbia, but that didn't go fast enough for me. So then I decided after a year and a half, I would go try to buy part of a sawmill. And I had an ability to buy a little piece of a sawmill. And if I would manage it, they would give me, after 5 years, 1/3 ownership. So I did that. So, John, where was the sawmill? Oh, my God. That was, of all places, in the Yukon Territory, Watson Lake. And again, where is Watson Lake? So I already said Vancouver. Prince George is 500 miles north, 800 kilometers. You go another 500 miles further north, or 800 kilometers. That's where is the boundary of BC, British Columbia, and the Yukon Territory. It's a place, Stoy, that in the wintertime, I've seen 62 below. And for a guy coming from Holland, that's very cool. Cold, extremely cold. And so that's where I ran a sawmill for nearly 5 years and ended up buying a lot of stuff in Watson Lake. But then I decided to give it all away. That's what I did, and start all over again in Prince George from the ground up. And then in 1975, I started a company called Brink Forest Products, part of now the Brink group of companies. And that was the start of my lumber mill. I couldn't find any partners, so I started on my own with 3 employees, worked as long as I could stay physically awake, worked 24 hours a day, and built it into one of the largest value-added manufacturers. And we are still growing today as I speak. I still intend to double it in capacity. I have 10 different companies. It's not about hoorah, John, how successful. I'm not talking about that. It's not about money. I had my dream. I did that. And then the other part about it is that it took me till 1997 until I walked in. I was already here for 32 years. Everybody said, oh, you're so successful, blah, blah. I didn't feel that way. I still didn't feel that way. So, and I walked into a bookstore here in Prince George, picked up a book, and the title of the book was Driven to Distraction, written by Dr. Halliwell. And I looked at the book. It was about ADHD. I never even heard of it. And I said, oh my God, that's me. And so I wrote in the book, I bought the book and I wrote in the book now in Dutch because I was ashamed of it because it implied that it was a mental disorder of some description, that I now I finally know who I am. So the longer I looked at the book and the more I found out about it, I knew it's a superpower. Oh, it's not. And even now people say to me, how do you do all the stuff that you do? I'm an author. I'm a in-demand speaker. I have written about 4 books. I'm working on 2 other ones. I'm running 10 companies. And then I felt I had to be more public about it. And so I started podcasting, doing all these other things. And I wrote a book about it, ADHD Unlocked. Very successful, actually. And so it kind of, I became aware of who am I. And so that became very, very important for me. And then, from there on, I've grown the business, being very active in publicly speak to young people in particular about things that are important to me. And other 2 months from now, this November the 11th, the Remembrance Day, I always, because I was there and I remember the time that I was there, even the time that the winter of 1944-45 were very, very difficult. They called it the hunger winter in particular. And the Germans had cut off all the food to Holland to put pressure on them and the Allied forces. And I can still feel now, even nearly 80 years later, the feeling of hunger. Every morning we would go, my sister, my brother, and myself, as gunny sacks into the railroad yard, pick up anything edible and burnable. And that's what we did. And then the hunger winter was the coldest one on record in Holland. A lot of vulnerable people, in particular young kids and older people, died, thousands of them during that winter. I share some of that with the students that I go to at least 4 schools the week of November the 11th to remember, why do we have 2 minutes of silence? And I feel I have an obligation to share that with them. And I do that. And then the other part that's looking back and from my experience is that giving back to the community has always been important to me, still is today. And being active and proactive, that's why I do a lot of podcasting and writing books. And so that kind of is my story.
Yeah. I love it. It's a story of grit, right? And overcoming adversity, from literally the war to even language barriers, new country, new culture, new things. Business owners and entrepreneurs alike have to overcome a lot of issues, right? Specifically when you first start out, whether it's grassroots or you bought into something. What have you learned specifically early on when you're creating a new business? Has it had been the biggest hurdle for you to be like, you know what, I'm going to do this, but like now I've actually achieved it. Like it's actually working. What was that biggest hurdle for you when you started your business?
Let me say it this way, Stoy, is that if I look back, the foundation of who am I have to show you this again. That's what I started with then, but that's not what I want to mention to you. It says underneath it says attitude, that no matter what happens, I will always look at it from the positive. No matter what anybody says, I avoid them. If today is a tough day, I know tomorrow is going to be a better day. Passion. Whatever I do, I give it 150%. I do that. And then work ethic, the harder you work, the success will follow. And I'm one of the hardest working individuals that I know. Is I get up every morning at 5:30. I always think I'm late. I always make my bed. And then every day is to me a day of opportunity, and I will give it everything that I got. And I still do that today. So the challenges that you refer to is that have confidence in what you believe in. Know yourself and say, not saying that I'm smarter than, but that everything is possible.
You're
I
right.
don't accept anybody that says to me, well, I'm to this, to that, and I can't do this because of that, and the other. I said, no, you can do anything you want to do. That has to be the approach. And that's another reason that even at my age, that maybe you just want to find out why am I this bodybuilder here on this picture is that I had a close call to dying in 2008 when I was 68, and I had a case of diverticulitis and a rupture of the colon, actually. So they had to, you have about 48 hours before the toxins attack all your organs. And so I waited too long, got to the hospital, and the doc said, you came this close. And so then I knew, now my wife is a vegetarian. I didn't listen as well to her as I could have, should have, but I was okay, but not quite ready. So then I knew I was going to do what everybody does, people do. At the end of the year, they make a commitment. I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. And I'm going to buy a membership to the gym, and I'm going to go to the gym. And then 2 weeks later, they can find 100 reasons why they're too busy to do that. I didn't do that. I went to the gym. I got a trainer because my whole life is meeting. Once I make a commitment, I follow the equipment. So I did that in earnest. Then 6 years later, so that was, 2008, I was already 68, and then I was 74. And somebody said to me when I was training in the gym, he said, hey, John, have you ever thought about competing? I said, me? Yeah. I said, why not? So I did. I trained even harder, worked on my diet, and then from there then competed in Northern British Columbia in the master category of bodybuilding and physique. Category 55 years and older. They could have been my kids, actually, that competed against, came in second in bodybuilding, third in physique. That qualified me for the provincials, came in third in physique, second in bodybuilding. That qualified me for the nationals and Canada and the Arnolds. And then COVID came. So now I'm again training. This is what I look like, nearly 84. Because I want to again go to the Arnolds when I'm 85. And I will look good, and I believe I will be successful. But the whole idea is that staying physically healthy, mentally healthy, diet, there are no particular secrets about it, but it is critical at any time in life. And that's why I make the point. I started late, but it obviously has served me well. But it will then, life is not about age, it's about quality of life and longevity. And to understand that is important. So that to me became an issue that I've been very vocal about it. I wrote a book about it, Living Young, Dying Old. And, that's what I did. If you look, I think the initial question was, what is the key? Determination and believing that everything is possible.
Love it. You talked about like bodybuilding, you started late, health started late. A lot of entrepreneurs, either those the ones that take the step or don't take the step, feel as if they're too late in their life to be successful. Whether they're 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, doesn't matter. What do you say to people that are sitting here right now listening going, well, I mean, he's had a great backstory. He's gone through grit. Obviously he's successful, but I'm not there. I can't get there, right? Because it's too late in my journey. What do you say to people that believe it's too late in their life to do what they want to do?
Okay, let me say this. I'm 84 years old. It is that I have 4 silos of companies that I'm involved in, very successful. The one is lumber. The other one is warehousing, distribution, and logistics. The other one is real estate, residential, commercial, and industrial. And the other one is media. And I'm very, I do writing books, I do speaking, I do podcasting, obviously, and I will start a platform in the next 2 months here as well. So all 4 are very, very successful. Every single one of them will double or triple in size in the next 5 to 6 years. That's what I'm saying. There's no question in my mind about it. That's where I'm going. So the question is, I'm too old or I'm whatever, is respectfully an excuse. If you want it and you make a plan and it has to be viable and feasible, then everything is possible. Do you want to make the commitment is a whole different issue. Because for me, as I said earlier, the first 20, 25 years, I couldn't find anybody that believed in what I was doing, my lumber company. So I couldn't find any partners. Then after a year and a half, I was successful. Then I had all kinds of people that wanted to get involved, but I didn't need them then. And today that is still the case. We're still a big company. I'm still the sole shareholder, and I still double or triple in size in the next 5 years.
Would you say that knowing who you are and having the utmost confidence in yourself is really the key to success or longevity?
Correct. And health and fitness and understanding it, and then keep your body active, because without health, you have nothing. Health is the most critically important, so that sunshine, keep your body active, mentally, physically, go to the gym. Don't have to do what I did, but at least walk. Keep your body active. Your body extremely forgiving, but it will only take abuse for so long. I really started when I read the book of Dr. Halliwell, when I picked it up in the store in 1997. I was then already 57 years old. So, so now at nearly 84, I'm still, every day when I go to work, I enjoy going to work. But at the same time, I take care of my body. I go to the gym, in my case, but at least you have to stay. I'm very careful about diet, and I stay mentally active. Podcasting is a good challenge. I think we are globally in the top 1%, and I love podcasting both as a host and a guest. On the Brink is a very popular podcast, and not only in Canada, but around the world. And I love to do it for all the reasons that you do.
So time, right? Time is key to this. Everyone's like a work-life balance. Business owners usually run themselves ragged, and they don't believe that they have time. You get up at 5:30. I get up at 5. Can you talk to and attest to the fact that there is enough time to get these things done? And what happens if you don't take the time to focus both on your mental health and your physical health when it comes to being a successful business?
The likelihood is then you will not be successful, because if you're not mentally, physically healthy and diet, and you abuse yourself with drugs and booze and smoke and all of those other no-brainers, then you will be very quickly falling into the category. But people say the last decade of somebody's life is usually when they suffer from all the classic illnesses, whatever those may be. And I'm not saying that I have I'm not a doctor. I simply give as an example of that. What keeps me healthy and fit is that I enjoy every single day of that I'm there. I will avoid, do not talk to me if you're going to be negative. Don't waste my time. And as I said, I started working in the workforce when I was 13. I'm nearly 84 now. That's more than 70 years. Okay, John, do you still enjoy your life? I sure do. Every single day.
We talk about this. This theme comes up a lot, and I'm going to let you know what the theme is with all my guests. We rarely, if ever, bring money into the conversation. And everything you've done in your life, yes, it took money as a tool to get somewhere, but it has nothing to do with who you are, how you operate day to day. And I see a lot of specifically young people, but people in general, tie their emotions, their joyfulness, their health, and everything to having X amount of dollars. What can you tell everyone about you in general, but your whole life, about the fact that this whole episode, you have not said, I made $1 million or my goal was $10 million. No. You're talking about just double and tripling stuff without the dollar figures. So tell us the importance of not focusing on money specifically.
It should never be about money. If that is the objective, I don't believe in most cases that people will be successful, and certainly not happy and contented. I like to give back to the community. Always. That to me has been grew up that way. What you do is give back. I stay, as I said, every Remembrance Day, that weekend, I talk to younger people about my experience, because I say we are so fortunate in North America. I do a lot of business in the United States. I do a lot of business in Canada. I fly a lot. I'm also a pilot, but I'm talking about commercially. I always sit by the window, because as I look outside, I say, if I fly in the United States and the southern, eastern United States or western United States, I look in Canada, in British Columbia, I look out at the window and I say, we're in paradise. We are in paradise. And I compare that to the people that live in the Ukraine and all the wars going to the Middle East and all the other places, the dictatorships all around the world. Venezuela comes to mind, Cuba comes to mind, China comes to mind, North Korea comes to mind, Russia comes, all these places. We are in a democratic country, although it is a bit of a challenge and a bit of a, to say the least, both in the United States and in Canada. But but it's democratic rule. And we are the most fortunate people in the world. And we have to recognize that. The other one is give back to the communities and be part of the people around you and respect. And all those things are important to me. And that's what I'm trying to do. And the other part about it is relatively speaking, as you look back, I look back and all the years that I've worked to go have pleasure in what you do and interacting. Podcasting is an amazing tool as well, because as you and me, I do a lot of presenting in demand, public speaker, but a lot of times it takes me a long time to travel to destinations and do presentations. I'm not saying that in some cases I do, especially as it relates to ADHD, but but podcasting in particular, as you and me are sitting here discussing these things, that all the while around the globe, tens of thousands of people are watching us in our conversation. And I think it is amazing and very, very powerful. And it's still at the very beginning.
Agreed. Definitely agree. As we get to the end of this episode, I always ask my guests to leave our listeners with one take-home item, concept, idea that will help them take the next step forward in their journey in whether life or wealth. So can you leave our audience with one thing they can do to take that next step and have faith in that next step?
Get to know who you are. Be at peace with who you are. Don't worry about this is not right. There is only one of you on this earth. Believe in yourself. Give back. Respect. And you're the luckiest person. All of you watching and all the people around, we are the luckiest in the world here in North America.
I could not have said it better myself. And like always, I tell all my listeners, hey, we ask for one thing. That is to comment, like, and share, not for the analytics, not for the algorithm, because we want to help you. Reach out to John Brink and his team, reach out to me, we'll connect you, but ultimately we are here to help both with our message and what we do for a living. So please take the time to reach out. John, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Stoy. My pleasure. Take care.
Was sponsored by Black Mammoth. Any awards, rankings, or recognition by unaffiliated third parties or publications are in no way indicative of the advisor's future performance or any individual client's investment success. No award, ranking, or recognition should be construed as a current or past endorsement of Black Mammoth. Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or recognitions is available on the Black Mammoth website, www.blackmammoth.com. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. Investment strategies such as asset allocation, diversification, or rebalancing do not assure or guarantee better performance and cannot eliminate the risk of investment losses. There are no guarantees that a portfolio employing these or any other strategy will outperform a portfolio that does not engage in such strategies. This broadcast should not be construed by any client or prospective client as a solicitation to effect or attempt to effect transactions and securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice due to various factors, including changing market conditions. The information discussed in this broadcast may no longer be reflective of current positions or recommendations. While information presented is believed to be factual and up-to-date, Black Mammoth do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as a complete analysis of the subjects discussed. The tax and estate planning information discussed is general in nature and is provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or tax advice. Listeners should consult an attorney or tax professional regarding their specific legal or tax situation. Past performance is not indicative of future results.